"Oh dear," Felicity whispered, her eyes wide and alarmed. "What is it?" Perdie asked, noting she had paled. "Are you unwell?" "It's the Earl." "What about him?" Perdie glanced around. The crowd shifted a bit, and everything inside of her froze at her first sight of the Earl. The stutter of her heart drowned out the lilt of the music. The gentleman standing before her was both strange and familiar. The dark brown strands neatly tied back into a queue seemed darker in the light of so many candles. Her fingers twitched with the memory of touching those silken strands. From this distance, his chiseled jaw held no hint of the stubble he'd perpetually worn on the road. His common clothing had been cast off for immaculate black evening wear. He cut a commanding figure, even as he stood looking so alone in the centre of the ballroom, slowly turning as he searched the gathered crowd. Even the gentlemen seemed reluctant to lead their partners onto the dance floor before the Earl had chosen his. What if he did not make a choice? When Thaddeus's gaze stopped on Perdie, she forgot to breathe. He tilted his brow, looking at her uncertainly, as if he were unsure it was really her. Even with the space between them, she spied the raw emotions that leaped in his eyes. The beginning of a smile touched his mouth, and Perdie almost stepped back. Almost ran. No more running. But she desperately wanted to. She raised her hand to lips that remembered the shape of his mouth. When she'd left him in the Folly, she had never thought to see him again. That was the way it was supposed to be, wasn't it? Her fool heart started skipping with delight as he took the first step toward her. His movements were leisurely, full of elegance and virility. Perdie dropped her hand from her lips and struggled for composure. What would he say? Would he confront her in front of all of these people? Would he cause a scandal and kiss her senseless? Her fancies were running away with her again, but her feet remained rooted to the floor. When he stopped in front of her, he took her hand and bowed over it. Through the layer of her gloves, she ached for the contact of his bare fingers. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes were bright with emotion. "Lady Perdita, may I have the honour of your company for this dance?" We were not introduced, she thought inanely. Surely the eyes of the Tonwitch were upon them realized they were intimately acquainted. Butterflies took flight in her stomach. After all their discretion in keeping their identities secret, he had found her anyway. A quick glance around the room showed the astonishment of her friends, and also their smiling delight. Perdie had won the wager without trying. Her mother, who stood on the opposite side of the ballroom, assessed them with a quizzical moo to her lips. And all she could say in answer to his question was, "Yes."